You are listening to Talk for the Non-Talkers, an introvert's field guide to thriving in a world that often favors the loud. I am Sanjay Gopinath, your host. This show is produced by Indira Priyadashini, and together we explore how quiet minds can lead, connect, and show up powerfully without pretending to be someone they are not. In each episode, we bust myths around introversion, share practical tools, and talk to real introverts thriving in leadership, arts, entrepreneurship, parenting, and beyond. Let's get into today's conversation. Jaydip Sikdar is a B2B tech marketing strategist with over 20 years of experience across Adobe, IBM, and other high growth startups like MoEngage. He advises early stage founders on positioning, branding, content strategy, and building scalable go to market systems. A hands on marketer, Jaydip actively explores AI and digital tools to streamline workflows and amplify impact. He also hosts The Marketing Couch, a podcast where he connects with B2B marketing leaders and shares their real world playbooks. Besides work, Jaydip maintains a disciplined fitness regime that includes yoga, running, and strength training. All right. Jaydip, thank you very much for joining me today on the podcast Talk for the Non-Talkers. Welcome.
Thank you, Sanjay. It is a pleasure for me to be invited on this podcast. The topic seems very relevant. Happy to be here.
Yeah, sure. So Jaydip, you worked across many different functions and domain. You started from movie production, then of course marketing, customer success, and now you are actually in a consulting role of your own, consulting CXOs. So I know that you are an introvert. We discuss about this. How has this introversion in you, or the introvert, be you being an introvert, shape up your journey in all these multiple roles?
Well, so right from childhood, I had I always felt I had sort of imagination power. I'm also very curious as a person, and the curiosity sometimes ends up taking a lot of risk. Curiosity ends up sometimes, or curiosity takes me to places or areas that I believe is interesting. So probably that is one of the reasons why I have done different kind of roles. One of the things apart from imagination that I mentioned is also imagination helps me to sort of anticipate. I spoke about curiosity. The other thing that all of that, if you sum it up, it helps me to connect the dots. Probably it was less so when I was younger, but I think last 5 or odd years, I see that some of these experiences sort of helping me to connect dots and contextualize things, and do a better job on probably than what I was doing it earlier, whatever I take up. So that's probably is something interesting and surprising as well for many people. But yeah, that's something that happens. I also started realizing, spending so many different, working through different kind of roles and in different places and different positions, is I realized that failures is temporary. That's one of my key learning. And I realized that setbacks are never really permanent. You reflect on it, and you sort of take away what's really necessary, do the course correction and move on. And that led me to also another realization that which I sort of felt that over a period of time kind of developed in me is resilience. So no matter how many times you fall, it is something that I think I have now built in, and it is extended to my health, extended to my other areas as well. It's not just about career. Every time there is a fall, the first thing that comes in my mind is that how to rise from there.
Yep.
I never kind of whine
Mm,
on, why happened, why this happened, what happened this, and maybe a day or two, and then
mm,
I'm back on my
mm,
feet,
mm,
and I'm more energetic and excited to do,
mm,
or put a fight to it,
mm,
basically.
mm,
And the last thing I think I learned over the years is that think before you speak.
mm.
It is very important. It also comes nowadays more naturally to me. Make sure that you know your audience, and tailor what you need to speak accordingly,
Mm.
right?
Right. All
Um,
good points. I'm
I think these are some of the things.
Yeah, yeah, all good points, Jaydeep, and I've been kind of noting down some of the things which you have been saying. So imagination, curiosity, and connecting the dots. And I'm kind of recalling somewhere like probably read or listened to was saying that for connecting the dots, you need to see the dots. So I think the seeing the dots happen when you have that imagination, you visualize, and you have the curiosity, and then you see these dots, and then you connect them as you reflect. I think since, and I can very well relate to it, and since introversion helps you be with yourself for quite long periods of time, I think you get the space to do that. I think that helps quite a lot. And also, I like that way you put it, like setbacks are temporary, and you rise from that. So some of these qualities which you mentioned, any introvert, and I'm not saying extroverts are excluded from this, but introverts probably have a natural tendency to pick it up much more when compared to an extrovert. So these are all good. The other point, and I'm sure that we are going to delve deeper into it as we go further, is about thinking before you speaking, right? And that gives you that space for listening. What is the other person saying? Why is he saying that? Probably you have that thought process happening. Like, why is he saying like this? And so all those kind of marination of the thoughts happen in your mind before you kind of speak. So all kind of good points. And I think that sets a good tone for our conversation here. And one of the purposes of this podcast, Jaydeep, as I talked to you earlier, is to bust some myths around introversion and the jobs that introverts can do. So in the first episode, we had a researcher, Dr. Sana. She talked about, by definition, what is introversion and all. But here, with
Sure.
you, I want to go a bit deeper into marketing as a profession, marketing, customer success as professions, which are like highly in demand nowadays. Customer success more recently, but marketing from a lot of years back. And these are places where you are kind of naturally expected to network, naturally expected to talk. Like people think that marketing is to network, marketing is talk. Customer success, obviously, you cannot have customer success functions without talking to the customers or without interacting with the customers, be it emails or be it networking, presenting, and whatever that is. So, as a marketer, as a customer success senior folk, how do you manage these demands? I mean, how do you network, or how do you talk to people without compromising on your core, which is being an introvert? So if there are, while you answer this, it'll be also interesting to hear if there are some tips or tricks you have up your sleeve which you have done, and that'll be of benefit for a lot of people here on how did you get there, because this question is definitely in the mind of a lot of people who are in this profession.
Sure, Sanjay. I think points probably we are discussing and sharing our experiences as introverts. Some learning will be there, kind of embedded in the conversation, and some will be more specifically that we will call it out as tips and tricks and so on, right? So yes, both profession, as you rightly mentioned, marketing and customer success, which is kind of account management, sales, that work, both require high energy, both require a lot of interactions, and uh, to some extent constantly be on mode. But unlike customer success, marketing also requires a lot of thinking. And marketing requires, because it has a strategy which is kind of almost built into or baked into this role, right? Whether you are, the strategy always need not be, a big strategy like a go-to-market strategy. your product strategy. The strategy could be as simple as you're doing a campaign, and that's strategy, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
you are choosing channels, that's strategy.
Right.
So strategy is there in every single step in marketing. And when we talk about strategy, it automatically connects you to data, insights, looking at market research, and so on.
Mhm.
And therefore, it automatically pushes you to go a little offline, and sort of spend time. So I enjoyed that part quite a lot. So what happened was, all through my marketing career, one thing I realized, and again, it's a very introvert thing probably, is that
Mhm.
I liked speaking about marketing, but I did not
Mm.
enjoy, or I was not a big contributor to any other water cooler conversations. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mm. Mm.
So
Mm. Mm.
when somebody spoke about the subject, the core, I was
Mm.
always up for it. Any
Mm.
technical piece, I was up for it. Any analytical piece, I was up
Mm.
for it.
Mm.
But if people are speaking about, outside,
Mm.
maybe life in general,
Mm.
in the middle of that conversation, if people expected to go out and have a drink, people expected, to socialize. Let's say I'll give you an example, and I don't still do a very good job about that. I have to confess that. But yeah, I have become slightly better than what I
Yeah.
was used to be. So even now, when I go to events, right,
Mm.
I try and find out some corner where I can probably pick up the coffee and stand, and then probably observe people rather
Mm.
than really go up to people and talk, right? And I'm sure a lot of people will relate to that. I still have that.
Mm.
But if I see there's a conversation that is happening, which is very technical,
Mm.
and technical, when I say this is very specific to marketing as a practice,
Right.
outside that, or any other conversation that really excites me or interests to me, probably I go and stand there near and probably add a few points here and there.
Mm.
But otherwise, I usually even now try to stay away from the crowd.
Mm.
Usually people go there to actually be with the crowd, network,
Yeah.
but that
Yeah.
is one challenge. And I think I told you sometime back this story, right? That I have read again from a psychologist in one of the podcasts, and she
Mm.
said that if you see yourself, after the first hour, you're on a party, and after the first hour, you're completely out of topic, content, drained in
Right.
energy,
Right.
and you're just finding a way to sort of escape.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, know yourself that you're an introvert,
Yeah.
right? So by default, I think, so my training happened a lot on doing the work, putting the heads down. And frankly speaking, even now, nothing is more favorite than that, doing the actual work.
Mm.
But if you have like-minded people like yourself, right, we can go on talking, maybe even a couple of hours without a break, and I'm sure we'll enjoy that as well, right? Because there are topics that we have similar interests. So coming back to the point, so I want to tell you a story on this, that I recall. So this was in Adobe, and I was in a marketing role, managing a centralized digital marketing functions, focusing on customers on the post-sale cycle, um, doing more of a retention marketing, so to
Okay.
say. The whole idea was to drive adoption of some of our solutions for existing customers, and also drive a program which is working with the consulting team, where we invite a customer to come, and ask questions, so that we there are deeper engagements.
Mhm.
And we were doing in conjunction with the consultants as well as the customer success team as well.
Mhm.
And at some point of time, I was pulled in to run the customer success ops, and also at the same time, I was given another role, which was chief of staff for the department head.
Okay.
Um, so chief of staff means, it's not just about managing the programs and or the tracks that
Mhm.
the department is running, But a large extent of that work was also contribute heavily to the culture of the team.
Mm.
And what that means is that do a lot of these internal events, workshops, functions, basically do a lot of socialization,
Mm.
which was to me a nightmare.
Yeah.
And the second role was ops, which again means bringing in everybody on the table, doing a lot of this analysis work, doing course correction, continuously be on with the different teams at all times. Both of these roles came at one point of time, and I was doing dual role. And it challenged me, almost broke me,
Mm.
to the extent that it was totally out of my comfort zone.
Mm. Mm.
One was highly operational, talking and connecting with people and doing this RCAs and so on. The other one is like bringing people together and create a sense of sort of belonging there in the
Yeah.
broader team. So do a lot of internal events and stuff like that.
Mm.
But what happens is that you learn about yourself a lot
Mm.
by only being in discomfort.
Mm.
And that started happening with me, right? So I started realizing that clearly my weaknesses started coming in front of me, but at the same time, I think now I'm very thankful to my manager at that time,
Mhm.
who pushed me to do that, perhaps knowing I needed to do that to be out of my comfort
Yeah.
zone.
Yeah.
um, at one point of time from there to where I ended up was that, right from doing program management, doing internal workshops, doing almost on a every bi-weekly basis, some events, offsites, um, strategy sessions,
Mm.
workshops,
Mm.
all of that alongside my operations role. So it prepared me very well for the next role that I would be picking up, which is
Mm.
a customer success leader role in APAC region.
Mm. Mm.
So that 2 years was a grinding time for me
Yep.
to got getting exposed to my weaknesses, and then I'm also a person who, and again, that did not be a common thing for all introvert, is that if I'm challenged, I really would like to sort of take it up,
Yep.
and work on it, to that extent that even if I have to go really 100 miles off my discomfort.
Mm.
So I did that, and
Mm.
bit by bit, bit by bit, the only thing that worked for me is to sort of keep telling myself is that every of these interactions probably is going to make me more confident of myself. I used to do this anchoring of these workshops, and which I would really, really run away. I mean, I remember when you used to do those workshops
Mm.
in
Mm.
back in IBM days for us.
Mm.
Um, I used to sometimes think, right? I mean,
Mm.
that it requires, but I know that you are very passionate and
Mm.
you are totally
Mm.
into
Mm.
that while you are doing some of those workshops. So I was not naturally like
Mm.
this. So
Mm.
it took
Mm.
me a
Mm.
lot of
Mm.
time to
Mm.
get out of comfort
Mm.
zone.
Mm.
So I think it prepared me for that high intensity, high energetic role, customer success. And
Mm.
for next 4 years, actually, I played that role at a
Mm.
leadership level.
Mm.
Later at Mo Engage at a country level.
Yep.
And I think having done that, I kind of overcome some of those limitations. Did I do all of that? Did I overcome all of my problems? I didn't.
Mhm.
I think some of these are more longer term, and you have to keep working on it. Some of them I feel is not even always. This is my personal thought that not all weaknesses need to be corrected.
Mm.
I mean, rather focus on strengths
Thanks. Yeah.
and build on that. I think that
Mm.
is what
Yeah.
uh, at least I started believing in more.
Mm. Again, yeah, thank you, Jaydip, for telling us the story about that. And these kinds of anecdotes actually really help the conversation get better and more realistic. And few takeaways from that. I mean, I can absolutely relate to it. And probably when we are talking about that workshops, right? When you saw me, doing that workshops, and then I'm kind of relating it to your comfort zone of, okay, talk about marketing, I'm there, but talk about something else, I'm not there, right? Probably when I'm looking back, and this is what I'm trying to do in this podcast, is about kind of decoding some of these things, like why did that happen such a way? And maybe for me, that I think it happened because I was passionate about that subject. I'm passionate about enabling people, helping people, and then I kind of transform myself into a non-introvert, or probably kind of move away from that spectrum. Whereas, as you rightly said, I can also figure out areas where I don't completely find myself in a comfort zone when speaking on other areas, because that's not the zone where you are. And I feel sometimes, and again, I don't have any science to back this up, but I think introverts are probably those people who are and you mentioned that earlier, that think much before you say, right? When you think, then you are actually screening a lot of thoughts inside you, and probably screening all those. Okay, I think it is like that. Probably I don't need to say that. But if I'm sure about that, I'm going to say, probably I'm going to say that. Again, probably I'm going to say that. So, which is unlike so many of the colleagues which we come across, right? I mean, whatever they think they will say, whether it's right, wrong, and I'm not saying that's bad for them. They're not lying, but they are just airing their thoughts. Whereas we are screening our thoughts like a funnel. I mean, since we are both from marketing, like we're screening it like a funnel, and there are a
Yeah.
lot of thoughts. Probably there are like only 90% of the thoughts which get screened at that level itself. So then it becomes that distilled
Yeah.
number of thoughts which come out, which are actually aligned to what we strongly believe in. Yeah, so that was one point which I take away, and I think that networking stuff. I need to go a little bit deeper on how I did that. Maybe something which I can think through. It was a
I would
hell.
love to know that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was a hell for me when I started. It's like I have to go and network and all, but sometimes it's a necessary evil that you have to go and do. So I also would find that corner, get that glass of drink, and then stay there, till hoping that somebody will come and talk to me. So that obviously, maybe I'm sure that there are some extroverts who probably would have given a shoulder for me at that point of time, and I would have had some conversation. But what I learned over a period of time was to realize and acknowledge the fact that, hey, Sanjay, you are not that person who is going to go around and meet with all the 52 people who are going to come for that event. I mean, that is not what you are, and that is not what you should be aiming for. So then, and now given the plethora of information we have, basically you know who is coming, and then you can figure out what they are doing, what their background, are there some similarities between you and him or her, did you study in the same college, do you run, for example, what's your hobby, like is there a hobby, or did you attend some conference to, something like that. So I try to find the three or four people who I just want to network. So I'm not looking at 52 people, but I'm looking at the three or four people, and these
Mm.
people, I will put some time, I research a little bit on these people, and then I try to have that conversation. So, and then again, as you rightly said, even though I start with that, okay, looks like we happen to be in the same city at that point of time, or we both like running. And I saw your post on, say, TCS 10K, which happened today. So, and then, but quickly we move on, because finally there is a purpose, there's an objective which I want to do. It's not just know the person, but as you rightly pointed out, it is probably know more about the function they are doing, or the function both of us are doing, and then we get there. But this is like kind of an icebreaker to get there, and you get, and they also appreciate that, and this is where the introvert will stand out, because introverts will spend the time to figure this person out, and the others appreciate, especially if it is outside work. I have always seen
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
people appreciate that. Oh, it's like you spend the time to understand me, and these are some things which are closer to their heart also. So
Yes.
beyond work. I mean, work probably, I mean, let me tell you, and I'm sure that you know it, but tell our listeners that it's not that always people like to talk about work. People,
Yeah. Yeah.
people like to talk about other things, that probably most of the time. So we give them the space. That was something
Yeah.
which I kind of really,
Yeah.
really kind of put into practice. And I think as you rightly said earlier, that I'm getting better at that.
Yeah.
And the other point which you said and like really struck with me is that this self-awareness, the awareness of ourselves happens actually when we get out of your comfort zone. In our comfort zone, yes, it happens, but the incremental awareness you get is probably lesser. It happens, but it's lesser. But outside your comfort zone, it happens much more. So, introvert, extrovert, whoever it is, I think we should find ways to go beyond the comfort zones and challenge ourselves. I'm not saying that overwhelm ourselves with that, but at least find one thing which you can do outside your comfort zone and then get to know what happens. Finally, you may decide not to stay with it, which is absolutely fine, but you go there and come back. I think that learning itself is very, very good. And the other point, again, I think it was Marcus Buckingham, Gallup, from Gallup, who has this survey around Strength Finder. So he talks about, again, he didn't say not to work on the weakness, but he says spend time on your strengths. And that is what the introverts should do more and more. You will not become the best networker. I mean, let's probably understand that, acknowledge that. And again, maybe you also find your own adapted ways, like I do that 3 to 4 people, or you may have your own ways to do that. You may have your own customized way to do that, but you will not become that guy who go around. You may see some people doing that, and don't try to be that person. I think that's very difficult. Of course, you may think that, hey, Sanjay, isn't that kind of contradicting with what you said now about going beyond the comfort zone? But that discomfort is probably too much, and you are very much compromising your authenticity. So it may be very difficult. So I would say slightly push the boundaries. Don't try to ape somebody else in that networking place or in your organization. I think these were some I think really good points which you mentioned, and I could really find some.
Yeah, and one important thing I think for listeners, which is also while we are saying this, see, if you are someone who is going to an event once a year, things are not going to change anyway, right?
Yeah.
So if your job requires, let's say you are an event manager, or let's say you are in the organizing committee, or maybe as a marketing, if you are in the marketing role, probably that's something is almost natural to a lot of marketers, right? So if you are doing that on a monthly basis, and that's something that I learned when I took up that odd role, right? When you do it on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, basically you do frequently, you start to get better bit by bit, So on the first one or the second one or probably even the fifth one, you don't see a change. But then suddenly on the sixth or seventh or eighth one, you find yourself slightly better than what you used to be. But you rightly mentioned, Sanjay, you will never become the best networker in the room, right? But you get marginally better, or probably sometimes relatively much better than what you are, right? Which sometimes is okay. If sometimes you need leaders or people or friends, well-wishers in your circle, the word goes, right, that your viewpoints and your personality largely shaped up by the people that you are surrounded with, right? So if you have those people who can push you for the better self, right, with the right intention, you definitely get better. And you need, at some point of time in your life, or all throughout probably, even in the family, to get the better self, right? Who will push you, who will push you to run, who will push you to do, physical activities, go socialize. So some part of it actually is necessary, that you have people who actually pushes you to do that. You probably, in my case, it was a manager who pushed me, and I'm really thankful to him today for who I am. And I used to be much worse, I mean, so thanks to him,
we are talking now.
Absolutely,
Yeah. So which is right. So I think finding that right ally who is helping you out in some of these situations is also help, and pushing you out of your comfort zone was also good. I mean, not the guy who is probably missing the gym because you are also not going to the gym, but the guy who actually pull you out and then take you to the gym
Yeah.
and wants you to be better physically.
Interesting. Like I have been going and I attend cult and I do
Mm-hmm.
yoga there,
Mm-hmm.
and I have completed close to 250 sessions,
Mm.
um, and probably not 5 occasions I've actually spoken to someone. Is it like it is crazy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but to me, I am going there for a purpose, and I do
Right.
my stuff and come back, right?
Right. 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 Right.
But a natural person who is basically an extrovert or say natural
Mm.
relationship builder
Mm.
kind of a
Mm. Mm.
person
Mm.
would connect. They will look at that as an opportunity to connect with people.
Mm.
And, all in 6 months, they are a very popular person. They're
Yeah.
having a big network built
Yeah.
and doing chai samosa outside somewhere.
Absolutely. And I'm very interesting that you say that point, right? So, for example, like if somebody sees me in office, they will not believe that I'm an introvert. And people will like their jaws will drop to hear that, hey, when I say that I'm an introvert. But somebody who watches me like at home, at like how I interact outside, he will know, like he or she will know. Like my wife is an excellent judge of that. So when her friends come, or we have to go to some of that, her friends, I mean, even my friends, she will give me all the wine. It's like, you have to interact, man. Like, don't make me look bad. So, which is good. So, like, probably she's that buddy who's like pulling me there. So then I kind of mentally get prepared. Like, this is a place where I have to kind of talk a little bit. So I invoke those same skills which I show in office to do it there. In office, probably there's no choice because you're getting watched one. I mean, more than getting watched, if I don't do the socializing and all those. I mean, when I say socializing, I'm using it very, very loosely. Then my team will suffer. I mean, it's okay. I can probably
Yeah,
take what I suffer,
yeah,
but the team will
yeah,
suffer. And that's not a
yeah.
right for a manager to say, I'm an introvert. I'll not talk to anyone. You do your own work. I mean, that's not right. But at
Right.
home, there's a choice technically. I mean, there's a choice,
Mm.
like whether I want to talk or not talk. So you exercise that choice. So sometimes at home also, in this case where I just talked about like socializing with my wife's friends and families and all, I think you get yourself into that space. And recently, when some of her friends was here and then looked like I performed well, and she was complimenting me, "Hey, you were you were decent, you were good. Thank you for that." So it's a bit of a adjust. I wouldn't say adjustment, but it's a bit of a workaround which you do in some cases. It's just like you talked about weakness, right? So sometimes, yes, that's a weakness. We acknowledge that it's a weakness. And I'm not saying introversion,
Yeah.
extroversion is a weakness. Okay, no, I'm talking about some other weakness. But
Mm.
you do just enough to make sure that it doesn't come out like in the eyes of somebody. Just enough. That's enough. I
Yeah,
mean, you know that
yeah,
it's not your
yeah,
strength. You will not be the
yeah.
best husband hosting folks and all those at home, which is fine. But you do just enough. Yeah, so that is very interesting.
You
And
kind of rise to the occasion, right?
yes, 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 yes. And even in the first conversation when I was speaking to Dr. Sana, so she was saying people are in a spectrum. So it is not that it's binary, they like zeros and one. So people are in a spectrum. And you told that
Correct.
earlier that you say you use this word, I think I'm getting better. So we all try, we all play different, I would say wear different hats in different occasions, which is absolutely fine. So you develop those skills. That's what she was saying. You develop those skills to thrive, survive in those situations. Probably I'm surviving
Mm.
in a situation of social gathering, whereas I want to thrive in office. So you choose those. And again, I cannot be that
True.
person who will think that, hey, everywhere I will go and do this. I think that will sap the energy out of you. I mean, you know it, sap the energy. And
Yeah,
because
right.
as introverts, we want those spaces where we have to recharge. It's like a battery will get drained, and then you want to kind of get recharged.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So since we are again talking around Jaydip, the corporates and all, I also want to poke a little bit further on this entire thing about visibility in corporates. And that's a big thing, we like it or not, especially when the organizations are getting a lot of becoming multinational across countries, across cultures. Uh, it is not just enough that you do your work well, but you also have to be visible, not just your manager, but your
Mm.
peers of your managers, your manager's manager, and all this. Otherwise, you get frustrated and all. So I just want to understand your experience on managing that. Did you also face situations? Your teams face those situations? Like, how do you handle that as an introvert? Because naturally, we are not those people who want to be visible. I mean, we will be very happy sitting in one corner or having that drink in one corner of the room. So, how do we get out of this? And this is something which we all need to do.
True, true. Yeah. And, with full disclosure, I'm definitely not there yet, by no means. It's kind of an area which is definitely work in progress. But like everything else I mentioned before, also, again, it's not so much about extrovert and introvert, but it's also an individual, who you are, that brings so it's a complex system, right? I mean, like you mentioned, Sanjay, in the last point, that we are not introverts necessarily 24 by 7, right? It's not like introvert is something that we are wearing everywhere and just thinking and living and breathing, right? Yes, if someone has to sort of step back and look at us overall, probably will say, hey, you know what, this guy is definitely are introverts, right? But we are not thinking and leading our life that way.
Yeah.
So coming back to this question, I would be honest with you. At some point of time, I wanted visibility and I wanted that kind of, fame, name, spotlight on me, and things like that. And it so happened that it came at one point of time. But what happened was, when it came, I just felt that it was very, very awkward for me. I just did not like it. It was just it was just a fallacy in my head that I would enjoy that.
Mm.
I need that.
Mm.
Only to realize that I just wanted to run away from that spotlight. I just wanted to go behind the backstage.
Mm. Mm.
I
Mm.
wanted to go behind the camera,
Mm.
behind, you know, it just felt like I'm exposed and sort of very, very awkward,
Yeah.
simply to
Mm.
put, right? So that again goes back to this other point, the earlier point that I mentioned, that you also learn about yourself,
Mm.
in the process, right? Do you really want that kind of visibility?
Mm.
But at the same time, over last few years, I realized that maybe it is related to the purpose. Why you want to do that? Is it just for you to just simply get a visibility or a namesake? And I'm saying this is because I realized that I actually enjoy making people successful,
Mm.
contributing to their growth, contributing to their success. And for that reason, if I need to push a case, if
Yeah.
I need to myself be visible for that,
Yeah.
to lead that team or to lead that agenda, I am okay for that.
Mm.
I'm up for that. And you know, in terms of, I see that it is driven by internally by my real urge to add value to others' life, and that's about it. If I were to do just for myself, I said, right, it was a very awkward thing, and I'm not. I really don't seek any more that kind of stuff. Even the latest podcast that I have started, it was quite for the same reason. Is the whole idea is to, in some way, helping the community. Not that there are not enough people, but at least my own individual purpose was to bring this best of minds
Mm.
and get these best nuggets from them
Mm.
and distribute that in the community.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, none of us are individually 100% 360-degree product.
Right. Right.
We
Right.
all have our plus and minuses. So my idea is to really look for those leaders and individuals who bring in certain type of strength,
Mm.
and sort of discuss about that, so that the listeners or the viewers can actually learn something. Maybe even if it is one thing that they can get benefit out of the discussion, is
Yeah.
I feel motivated by
Yeah.
doing this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that was really,
Mm.
so the way I thought that I'll manage my visibility and probably even my own personal branding, so to say, right? Just because I don't like that spotlight of being there and all the time I'm talking to people, I thought I can do that same thing being in the backstage, but
Yeah.
probably putting something on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
probably doing this podcast where I'm very comfortable with one-to-one with people, like
Mm.
how I'm speaking with you right now,
Mm.
where I get an opportunity to learn about what they do, what their company does, what challenges today they are facing, and how they are facing it. So basically
Mm.
decoding it.
Mm.
And, I think if you, since I'm doing that, in the process, I would say the byproduct of
Mhm.
this entire thing could be is in some way, it brings some amount of visibility.
Right. Right.
It
Right.
brings some
Right.
amount of personal branding as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
but not in the other way that I wanted
Mm.
to do this, and that's why I'm doing this.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
still going back to the earlier point that it motivates me if I'm able to add value
Yeah.
to you or to your work or to
Mm.
your company in any
Mm.
means. And I
Mm.
think that really suits my consulting role as also.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. So this is again great answer. I mean, great answers, and it gave me like a lot of thoughts to pick on. Making people successful. If that is the purpose of you, then to get there, you may have to get into some uncomfortable spaces, which is in some cases probably getting visibility for your team members. So you have to do that. Absolutely, I could agree with that. And even if you would have missed that, your podcast, I was about to kind of talk about that. So now thank you for bringing. So for the benefit of the listeners, Jaydip also has got a podcast, the Marketing Couch, where he actually goes deeper into some of the marketers and decoding the way they've done what they've done for the benefit of marketing professionals. So I would strongly recommend you to listen to that. Again, as an introvert, I think Jaydip, it was probably some of these platforms like podcasts, right? Which we are. I mean, you are doing it, I'm doing it. So these kinds of platforms, LinkedIn, you said, are some of the right platforms where introverts should tap into. Because talking in a room full of people doesn't come natural to us. So yes, you kind of learn the skill to get there, but while you get the while you learn to get the skill, you can probably do that. And I can recall a couple of like instances, at least one like really stands out. And this is in IBM where we work together. So it's in a training. And again, as you were talking about the cult, I mean, I'm also like that. You go to training and probably one or two people who I have to talk to while doing the table exercises, I will find that out. But after that, I also don't want to know others. Of course, I listen to them, I observe them, but I just don't go beyond that. That's not the purpose. So in that meeting, sorry, in that training, when I came in, then the trainer actually told, hey, you are that Sanjay Gopinath who wrote about biases on LinkedIn. I mean, this is like years back. And then I was like, I felt very happy and proud that hey, somebody read that and somebody kind of understood that I am that person. So she had that doubt and she clarified. So some of these will help. So for example, LinkedIn, writing in LinkedIn, and there are many people. And one of the reasons why Indira and I started, or at least personally me, and Indira is the one who came up with the idea, but personally for me, why I got passionate about this topic is I used to write a few posts here and there about introversion. And the readers being introvert themselves, they will not write a reply there. So they will sometimes WhatsApp me, or they will, when they meet me in some other occasion, they will say, Sanjay, what you wrote about that? I could really relate to that. I mean, that's me, that's me. So I thought it is important that I expose myself as an introvert. And even I do that even for the benefit of my team members, that if as an introvert I can do this, nothing should stop you from doing it. Of course, it's uncomfortable, but if that is what the situation demands, then probably you need to get there in a way where you don't compromise your authentic self. So, like, good point. So I liked your purpose of making people successful and being driven by that. And one more point, which I kind of think through when you are talking about this visibility is that you do something around this. So these may be some tips which you could definitely use. And picking on that, Jaydeep, now since you are on your own consulting CEOs and CMOs and all, right? So again, there you need to influence. So finally, all these things are to influence others, right? We just don't talk to. Ideally, we should not be talking to say that hey, I'm this great guy, but you are actually talking or writing or communicating to influence others towards some actions. So in this case, also, it's the same thing that you have to influence these chief executives towards some actions. So how do you do that? Is it more one-on-one, or do you have Do you find some challenges as an introvert, and like how do you manage that more efficiently?
See, one of the key strength that I rely upon is once again going back to listening skills.
Mhm.
The other thing that I try and do that both for myself and if someone I need to convince or influence for that individual as well is ability to see the bigger picture. I think that is important, especially as a role, consulting role. Um, of course, there are different type of consulting roles, but at least in which currently are the parameters that I am working on, mostly working with founders, startup founders, or product leaders who already have a vision. And for me, the most important thing is to be able to add any value before that, listen through that, and bring in the empathy to see why they are saying something, what they're saying.
Mm.
And that I think is extremely critical in a role like any leadership role for that matter,
Mm.
because if you don't have the empathy, chances are there that you will already be biased in
Yeah.
your viewpoint, and that will block your any further proceedings, whether it is thinking, acting. You will actually be sort of blinding yourself, literally, lack of a better word. So I think I use that quite a lot. I also started using more research, data, insights to build my points.
Mm.
And again, this is maybe natural for most of the marketers, but as introvert, um, bringing that aspect of our sort of personality, it kind of automatically comes because you are listening, you are also then at the simultaneously you are processing things, you are also referring to others' work, you are referring to broader secondary research, talking to people, um, all of that, essentially doing that work to ensure that the proposition or the work that you want to sort of influence, or the project that you want to influence, you have enough data and insights and logic and reasons.
Mm.
Sometimes you need to play a devil's advocate. Sometimes you need to play a bad cop kind of role. And I have seen particularly this for startup founders,
Okay.
because they are not always, but they can be in, sometimes can be in their own shell.
Yeah.
And the thinking is very inside out.
Mm.
Problem
Mm.
with that is you don't see all dimensions.
Mm.
And therefore, bringing that outside in view is my job.
Yeah.
Playing the devil's advocate,
Mm.
showing the possibility of where things maybe could have been overlooked
Mm.
is my job.
Mm.
I drew that, I started doing that slowly and gradually because that's not something, again, natural to me.
Right.
But I see that when you do that, when you are assertive a
Mm.
bit,
Mm.
when you say something with examples, with pointers, and maybe even sometimes data points maybe not always necessarily is available, but at least with your ability to connect dots that point, right? You are
Right.
able to show that picture in a rightful manner. I think it works.
Mm.
Long back, again, going back to another story, a manager told me, I think, Jaydip, your leadership style is uh, passive.
Mm.
You need to be
Mm.
more aggressive. You need
Mm.
to
Mm.
be more influencing with your team.
Mm.
Um, while I took his feedback, but I figured that that's not necessarily always true.
Yeah.
As a manager, you need to do the walk the talk.
Right.
Your people will never completely fully accept you or respect you unless they see that either you have put your feet exactly in that water,
Yeah.
You are also taking some steps to decode stuff. Your skin is in the game, and you are not someone just act like an outside advisor, right?
Mm, mm,
Um, Not necessarily even how to solve that problem, but at
mm,
least show that intention that you have done your part. You are also
mm,
doing uh, your own research, maybe your own experiments, maybe your own viewpoint, so
mm.
that it's not just a statement, it's not just a high level sort of giving an opinionated view
Mm.
without any substance.
Yeah.
And I think that's also very important, walking the talk,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So to draw really respect from all sections, above, bottom, and your peer group.
mm.
Main thing that I think is important is people want to see how sincere you are about
Yeah.
this and how committed you are really about this,
Mm,
and not just someone who is giving a passing remarks and moving on.
mm, mm. Very, very, very nicely put. All those things which you mentioned were sprinkled throughout your kind of conversation just now, deep thinking, listening, and you talked about strategic decision making and marketing as a job which requires a lot of strategic decision making and empathy. Of although I mean, everybody talks about empathy, but empathy has got a like multiple dimensions, and you like really put that out nicely about kind of getting into the other person's shoes. And in your case, you are kind of showing the other person what the world looks like in a different perspective, right? And you may have some kind of I would say objections at the at the start, but I think over a period of time, people will appreciate that. Okay, Jaydeep took that time to show me that angle which I never saw. And one thing which you talked about really stood out for me was this like term aggression, right? And I think I feel that in a corporate it is used like very, very loosely, like aggressive sales, and we have to be aggressive. The leaders have to be aggressive and all that. I mean, I generally don't subscribe to that. I think these are the probably. I mean, I will still I will say that that's a kind of non-inclusive word because it's very difficult for an introvert to be aggressive. I mean, if whatever you mean by aggressive, right? So yes, these people, these introverts can be assertive, can be very clear about what they are saying, and can be very sure about what they are saying. But this kind of aggression, and which is kind of seen as a virtue by some of the people, at least in corporates, it's very weird. I mean, I would probably deny that that's not the right way to look at it. And very recently, maybe like 2 months back, I was in this college and MBA institute where one of the speakers, and this was like, and he spoke before me, and he was taking a different topic, and I was taking a different topic, and he was in this class of fresh BBA, MBA students, and he was and I would say that he was like the aggressive kinds, making point to people saying that, hey, how many of you are introverts? I mean, I hope you guys are not introverts because if you are introverts, then you have to go to do some research. You cannot be an introvert and do your job in marketing, in sales, in finance, in HR, and all. I thought again he was speaking. It was not a panel discussion. Otherwise, I would have probably probably given my opinion about that. But it is so sad that these corporate leaders are still considering some of these archaic views and then telling these people about it. And I hope that the students took it in the right spirit and probably they have a lens through which they can sift out. Okay, he may be well-meaning, but there is a way to say it, and the words used were not right. So there is a lot of, I would say, painting of this corporate life with some kind of virtues which we need to have. And I was joking with yesterday, I was speaking to someone, and both of us are introverts, and he's doing sales. And I was telling that if I write proudly that I'm an introvert in my resume, will somebody hire me for a sales or marketing job? And unless the hiring manager is himself or herself an introvert. So these are still weird things, and I'm not asking you to put introvert, but this,
Stigma,
yeah,
yeah,
it's stigmas
sort of stigma.
yeah, and wrong notions. which we have to get away
Yeah,
with. Yeah, we have to
yeah.
get
It's
away
like
with.
a taboo in societies, right?
Yes, yes, it is. It is right. Yeah. And many people, and I'm sure that, and I've heard this, and I heard this from parents, even saying that, oh no, I think my son is an introvert. I mean, as if it's a kind of a disease.
Negative thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yeah. It's a negative thing, and there has to be something done to make him make him more sorry called extrovert. So I hope during this course of our podcast we are also talking to a child psychologist, and all. Hopefully there are some myths which are getting busted out here. Okay, the last part I want to uh, get your advice, because you have been in the industry for quite some time, donned multiple hats, and look at it from an introvert and an extrovert perspective. What will be some of your final kind of advice to some of the people who are introverted doing, say, profession of marketing or customer success, and also to the other side? And I'm expecting a lot of extroverts also to listen to this podcast. And if I'm an extroverted guy, it's not your fault. You are an extroverted guy, it's not your fault. How can that leader be a bit more inclusive in understanding that, okay, introversion is a thing, it's a reality, and then how can I as an extroverted leader be more inclusive? So if I can lean into some of your experience around these two topics, then that'll be a great kind of summary for our podcast.
It's interesting you say that, because what happens is sometimes if you're the manager whom you work with uh, also is an introvert, is not a guarantee that it's going to be a fruitful relationship. Remember, that's
Yeah, 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 yeah.
so I keep saying this, right? That it also depends on individual. But one of the key, which I personally experienced, so I'm not going to, I'm not making points which are more theoretical, but
Mhm.
purely sort of experience through my own personal journey. Um, I have worked with people, clients, okay, or in this case it was a client. So the problem is that communication, right? I feel that the biggest barrier as an introvert, sometimes we kind of, a not all introverts are good in communication in terms
Mm.
of, maybe they are good in written communication, but see, by the way, it's nothing to do with language when I say
Yeah,
communication, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just that, body language. It's just
yeah.
that confidence with which you communicate something to someone. And sometimes it could be just an expression, meaning,
Mm.
I'll give you an example, how communication can cripple things, right?
Mm.
So I may have a vision, but I'm not communicating that effectively with my team. I
Mm.
may have a path in my head
Mm.
to go to that vision, to reach that vision, to realize that vision, but I'm not necessarily communicating that with my team.
Mm.
I may have some feedback for an individual, but I feel that, that other individual may feel bad if I don't know even how to say this. And in that process, you don't even communicate or articulate it. Then you are actually leaving a lot of room for assumptions, guesswork, and that can actually be a catastrophe.
Mm.
That can actually create a lot of misunderstanding, that can derail your projects, that can probably create a problem in terms of alignment with your vision with the rest of the teams, specifically if you're a founder. So I think we talk about communications all the time, but I think this is one thing I would really urge all introvert leaders is to focus on being more expressive,
Mm.
if not in the public, but at least in one-on-one communication.
Mm. Mm. Very good point.
If you think, if there is, if you think the work or the idea or the image or the vision that you had is not aligned with probably your team is doing or an individual is doing or a direct report is doing, you need to be clear to that person.
Yeah, yeah.
that's the least thing that you can do as a leader or a manager.
Mm.
Give an objective feedback and review where it needs to be, what good looks like in your head versus where it is
Mm.
today.
Mm.
If you are not doing that part, I think you are not fit for a leadership role.
Mm. Yeah, I agree.
So be introvert or extrovert, I think that is very critical. But I think for introvert, it is extremely critical.
Yeah.
So the other thing, sometimes some introvert who are more intellectual and more full of wisdom, sometimes also think that what's the point of just, maybe it's a redundant thing to say, and
Yeah. Yep.
maybe it is understood.
Yes.
Understood.
Yes.
Why even making this small simple point?
Correct.
Be assured, know this, that's not the case.
Yes.
You will be surprised. In the same room, there are three people who have no idea what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
So, in the communication world, I think you and I are both, we have learned enough, is that
Mm.
if nothing, over communicate,
Absolutely.
don't under communicate.
Yes.
For God's sake, don't under communicate,
Yeah.
because that can complicate things with you being introvert and assumptions and
Mm.
expecting people to, okay, I expect him to understand or I expect her to understand. It can even spoil your own relationship with your own family members,
Right.
close people, right?
Right.
So telling what you feel,
Mm.
telling if there is something that is bothering you, if telling that you are not happy or you and the things is not up to your expectation, is something the other person deserves.
Right.
People deserve good feedback.
Right.
Not good feedback, but feedback.
Feedback. Right.
I think a lot of people hold that back,
Yeah.
thinking that, oh, the other person may not feel comfortable because that other person may be a senior person, the other
Right.
person may be my spouse, the other person maybe is my father-in-law, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Or my father.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
don't do that. So I think introvert, this is my biggest this thing, is that focus on your improving on your communication. Be aware how much you are speaking. But it is okay to think through and speak, but it is important to speak, because being quiet doesn't help always.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when people or a team is working.
Correct. And
So I think that's one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the communication,
Yeah, go ahead.
before I give it back to you, so now you have multiple ways to communicate. I think you touched on that. So it's not that you have to necessarily say that. If you're not very comfortable saying that, write it, or any other channels of communication. In one-on-one, you should be able to communicate on an email or in person. So use these channels available to communicate, but you need to necessarily communicate. And I completely agree. And I tell it again and again, and I'm still learning there in terms of our communication. So when in doubt, please communicate. Don't assume that, yes, everybody knows about these things. As you rightly said, 5 people in that room probably are asking that question in their head, but they are not asking it. I mean, their head is asking, they are asking. So you please say that, so that it'll at least benefit these people. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
That's all. I think there are, of course, many other things that introvert. I think introvert leaders or even as people need to be aware of. But I think I put communication is at the heart of everything. Because if that goes wrong, everything goes wrong. That is assured.
Correct. And especially,
for example, a lot of introvert don't have a habit of asking questions, right? A brief is given, a project brief or a creative brief or whatever, and they assume, it must have been for this, it must have been for that. Maybe. I think you are doing a big mistake, right? It's a big so it's fundamental to get 100% clarity by asking questions.
Correct.
And being objective, right? So that both people, even if you ask questions, the other person gets an opportunity to rethink about what he just said or she said.
Yeah.
Right. That brings a lot of clarity.
Yeah. And you talked about this, Jaydip, at the real start about curiosity, right? So one of my kind of personal hacks to do that is, like, your questions are because you're curious to know more. Like, why are you saying that, Jaydip? Or what made you say that? What made you think that this is the solution? So I think you have to stay curious to know more and to understand things more, rather than, as you very rightly said, rather than assuming that, oh, this may be the reason why Jaydip has told that. And then Jaydip has a different reason. You think that's a different reason. And this is where the communication gap comes into play. So please clarify all those things, ask more questions. Even if they don't have answers, you don't have answers, I think it's absolutely fine. It will be an opportunity for us to find answers to those questions. I think that curiosity is a big skill. And we talk about all these skills in the times of AI, right? So this curiosity is a big skill, which I think we should have it as a very fundamental skill for us. And because if you have got curiosity, and I feel anything thrown at you, you can pick it up. And with the help of all these technologies and tools, you will be able to pick it up. But you should stay curious. Yeah, on that note,
And in fact,
yeah.
use that word literally also. That I'm just curious.
I'm just yeah.
What made you
That's a
think?
good one.
I'm just curious. What do
Yeah.
you think about it?
Yes.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. That's a very good one. That's a very good one. Yeah. So this something sometimes some of the tips I give some of the introverts in like who I work with is, okay, so now you are in a meeting, be it virtual or in person, and like Jaydip is presenting, and you have these questions coming in. So now you write those questions down immediately. You don't think, okay, let me get a space and I will, hopefully nobody will do that. And the other one, which I think I wrote about that also, in virtual mediums, like if you're in a virtual meeting, one of the issues which introverts have told me is that, oh, Sanjay, I wanted to ask this question, but but some Ramesh asked the question earlier. So I didn't get the time to do it. So when I asked, like, hey, like, what did happen? What happened to you in that meeting? So in that way, I think now, since we have tools and technologies available, as soon as you have a question, as like you write it down, you raise your hand. Now the person may not stop the presentation and ask you to do that, because we'll go the whole whole, but that's okay. Let your hand be raised. And then, because there is an order now they have all these orders, right? They will come to you, and then you have an opportunity. So you don't need to, it's not a physically like you have to raise the hand and keep it there. Yeah, if you want, you can do that also, but you can raise the hand. So there are a lot of tools which you can use and which can help you get into that uncomfortable zone a little bit. And it's all habit. And we talk a lot about this habit formation. It's about doing this 4 5 times, and then you get better at it. It's like going to gym. The first day, I mean, you do some upper body, I mean, nothing is going to happen to your biceps. But you do it that for 3 4 months, then you will slowly start seeing those kind of changes. So that's what we want in any place. In any case, it's extrovert or introverted, to do some of these things continuously so that you get better at it and become habit, second nature for you. So Jaydev, we
Yeah.
covered.
I think the second aspect,
Go ahead.
the extrovert leaders, I think that's
Mm.
also like, what if you're dealing with an extrovert leader, or what you are an extrovert leader and you have team members who are maybe important and critical or whatever, but there are introvert people, right? And which is often the case, maybe, which is the other way around. I think a couple of things that comes in mind are critical, right? One is, be aware that the team probably have both type of people, right?
Yeah.
While the first part is obvious, the second part also completely is not hidden. So be aware that individuals have different style, and that probably has nothing to do with their capabilities. It's just that their personality are different.
Right.
I think we discussed enough that some people feel comfortable asking question in a room, some people don't, some people probably wait for others to ask that question and say, hey, you know what, anyway, somebody has asked that question, right? So all of that things are possible. So as a leader, you need to also probe into it. And the way you can do that is, like we just mentioned, right? I'm curious, you are quiet. Maybe there's something, what do you think about this, right?
Right. Yeah.
This is again a way of sort of inclusiveness and bringing this person to have some comment. And initially, maybe you have to probe. Once this introvert individual, gets an opportunity to 1 or 2 times speak and share, maybe this individual become more comfortable sharing in the future as well,
Correct.
right?
Right.
But you need to show that you care. You are okay here to listen,
Yeah.
right? And you are not going to just go by someone who is vocal and loud, and So I think this is like a almost hygiene as
Yeah.
a extrovert leader, to ensure that the majority of the voice is heard, and not like only those who know how to talk, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that includes the actively seeking feedback.
Yeah.
Second is, also recognize contributions from all segment of people. Some may be for their sales work and coaching work and presentation work, but for some, maybe is that back-end research that pushed the deal, that insight or intel that actually helped unlock a door.
Yeah.
So make sure that as a leader, you pay attention to those details, right? And make sure that you recognize in the right forum, so that overall the confidence level of the overall team improves, including of course the people who are actually introvert, right? And make sure that you yourself are consciously not creating, hey, you know what, I don't think this job is right for you,
Yeah. Yep.
because
Yep.
you're not someone who actually will ask question or speak, because that pushes that team member even more behind,
Yeah.
right? So if you are making such judgmental comments, both publicly or one-to-one, you can of course take time to coach people, take them into confidence, speak to them, share feedback, and say why this is important, and why, and these are opportunities for somebody to do that. So I think as an extrovert leader, some of those things, if you do, I think this basics, I think it helps improving the
Yeah.
morale of the team and the confidence of or the balance of the team, and it helps at the end of the day, the team overall, right?
That's excellent points, Jaydip. I think it starts with being more aware that because such differences will be there and acknowledge those differences, provide spaces. And I like those tips which you said that, okay, Sanjay, you seem very quiet in that meeting, and I know that you talk about or you are an expert in this subject. Is there anything else which we are missing? And also maybe in some cases, maybe adding on to that, also maybe in some cases before the meeting, and if I know as a manager that, say, Jaydip is an expert in that and Jaydip is an introvert, chances of Jaydip being quiet is likely high, then ask Jaydip to share his views beforehand. And then you as an inclusive leader will give that space to Jaydip. Okay, Jaydip, we talked about this like before the meeting, and I think you had some interesting views. Why don't you talk? And I think these things are very, very important, especially when the meeting rooms, be it virtual or in person, are becoming more diverse. When I say diverse, cultures from the Western cultures where people talk English is their first language, so it's naturally that they talk in the language, to the Eastern cultures going beyond India, like Japan, China, and all, where they are thinking in a different language and they're translating into English. So you need to give the space. So the right leaders for the future are people who see these differences and acknowledge this difference and provide spaces for that. I think you nicely put that. And the other thing which I really liked is about recognizing the contributions which happen even behind the scenes. And that's a great learning. It is not the person who presents with those jazzy slides and get the accolades, but there is also a person who actually did all the work behind the scene to get that presentation happen, to get that content be more appealing. So acknowledge that rather than just accidentally, even if it's not deliberate, but accidentally missing that. Also, you as a manager has got more onus to acknowledge these contributions and looking at it from a holistic perspective rather than the last mile of who ran the last leg of a 4x100 relay race. So very good points. Jaydip, I just really love the discussion. I think we got deeper into a lot of these topics. The what I kind of take away from here is some of the skills that introverts bring to table, and probably some of the tips and tricks which both of us shared in terms of how they can not become the best networking guys, but just tide over that weakness so that you are not being penalized for something which is critical to your job or critical to the task which is at hand. Thank you, Jaydip, again for spending this time with me. Really, really great inputs, and I hope that the listeners would also gain from our conversation. Thank you.
I really hope so, Sanjay. Thank you for inviting me on this platform. I personally, this topic is really near and dear to me, and I really hope the listeners and the viewers find values and hopefully ask some questions, if they have, and I'm sure you will be able to address them, depending on the platform that they are listening to or
Yep.
viewing this.
Yeah, that'll be great. And also do log into Marketing Couch, Jaydip. I think it's available in YouTube and other channels, Jaydip.
Yeah, it's available on YouTube, on Apple Podcast, and on Spotify. Currently, the first episode has gone live, but in the next few weeks, every week, Saturday, there will be a new episode that will be released.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you, Jaydip.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you for tuning into Talk for the Non-Talkers, where quiet minds speak loud truths. If today's conversation resonated, share it with someone, introvert or extrovert, who will appreciate it. Follow the show on Spotify or YouTube and leave a review. This will help more people discover the podcast. This is Sanjay with Indira signing off. Until next time, keep showing up quietly but powerfully.